Hello YouTube, Matthew here, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you guys pretty much all of the rest of the folders that I think we need to look at. So that will be the mobile assets, the mobile device, the mobile software update, the preferences folder, and the root folder, just to see what we have in them. And at this point I think we're going to be done with this image and we can move on to further things like SQL and other stuff. But for now, let's stick to this stuff right here, this iOS forensic stuff. So without further ado, let's get into this video and roll the intro. Now welcome back to the video everybody, and we are going to start with mobile assets. But before we do that, I just want to mention that if this is the last video in the series and you are seeing this after it comes live and there is nothing left of the series, the next series that I think I'm going to be doing is a series on a little bit more about SQL and using specific queries in SQL to filter out things in certain databases. So if this ends up being the last one in this iOS forensic series, it may take more than a few days to do this. So if you're a regular viewer, please be patient, okay? Now without further ado, you guys are probably watching the screen right now if you're not taking this as a podcast. But if you are watching the screen, you'll see that in this mobile assets v2 folder, there's com_apple underscore mobile asset underscore something, some sort of service that's Apple. So these will all contain folders that contain things like databases and models for certain things. So for instance, if we look into core, maybe duet expert content that has nothing in it, font 7. Also, I want to keep that asset data, info.plist. So if we look into the info.plist that goes under this fonts, it's the info plist under fonts. So it will show us the bundle version and all of the other information about the font service. So that means stuff like yeah, I don't know how to make this bigger. I want to make this bigger. Control Shift. Okay, I'll do that some other time, but font info. So there's multiple items of font info. So in this case, this will go somewhere, and this will go from somewhere, and this specific info is about a font called Muna and all of its typefaces. So maybe Muna regular, Muna black, which is bolder than bold, and Muna black again. So there's a lot of Muna going on here. So this must have been for some sort of app that we can see. Moon.tcc. Install no installable fonts selected. And these are all of the fonts that I have on my system. So this is something that you can find on Mac. This is all of the fonts that you have on your own Mac. Under the font bank. So this is available for all languages for me. But this is not going to... not going to be good for me, so I closed that out. Maybe... what happened to my cursor? Okay, there my cursor is. I got my cursor back. And we can see in the XML file for this folder that there is a build that has compatibility with a certain font, and actually this one has a lot, so this is damn near all the fonts that lie on an iPhone. I'm pretty sure that it is, which is pretty cool. Pretty cool. That one file contains all the font information for things on the phone. But I can look into that more a little bit later on. Fario, Diwan Kofi, Insana, Beirut, Wasim. Yeah, so yeah, you'll see that there's a bunch of different fonts there and a file that contains for the fonts. So Polygon data assets, maybe. So linguistic data contains language models that allow us to do voice dictation and stuff like that. An interesting thing, fun story. So I learned a couple of days ago after I published the last video. If you've seen the last video from a couple days ago, after that video published, maybe a few hours later, I was at home and I was doing Duolingo on my phone, and I found out that the keyboard for one of my languages actually has voice dictation, and I was doing the typing exercises for that, doing voice typing, and I love how it gets it right almost all the time. So with that, I learned that Apple voice typing works not only on English, but other languages like Greek, Turkish, and Spanish and French. So now how about we go into, how about media support? Media support.xml. So this will show, oh, this will show a certificate. So no, that's a certificate in base64 format, another certificate. So this is a certificate that is used by this client to authenticate into the iTunes database of the user. I probably shouldn't be putting this much. Routine D, this is another cool artifact that this routine D is something that allows our phone to track what we're doing and show us recommendations on things based on our routine. And that is why it's called the routine D. Routine. And that's super awesome. And so this is another certificate that it has within XML, and yeah, there's not much to say about that. So asset data, asset defaults.plist. Let's check out defaults.plist for. Okay, let's try that again. It's not opening. Oop. Closed. So now that this is going on, this has default threshold values. And this has a lot of fields and an array of items. So game center, FaceTime camera, purple buddy, and a lot of the other stuff. A lot of the other Apple services that Apple puts on its phones. And yeah, these are all the default apps for everything that's on the phone. So our default browser, for instance, would be our Safari, wherever it is here, mobile, and mobile Safari, and mobile SMS would be probably what it reads as its default text messaging. Apple.mobile store must be the app store that's its default app store, and probably only app store. And such on and so forth for, oh. This is iTunes. This should probably be iTunes, actually. Because I see App Store up here. So I made a mistake. Sorry for that mistake. And it has stuff for AirPlay. Now, yeah, when you get your hands on this image or any of the other images that I have that have this stuff within it, you could ultimately do the rest. Auto asset locker history. That has nothing inside. And Perished has some folders in here for stuff that you could look at on your own. And now mobile device has profiles and provisioning profiles mas.db. mis.db. So certificates, this is certificates for provisioning data and things. Database scheme version, no. This doesn't have anything. So no mobile software update. This should be where it's still, ooh. 2004-08-23. So this mobile software update is where it stores parts that it downloads to updates and the full files to the updates as well. As you can see here, there's an IPS file, which is an update file. So I can tell by the title of the file that it was downloaded at 8:31 p.m. on 8/23, which is over a month ago. And that must have been the iOS 16.7.10, which is the latest version. And yeah, these are all the parts to it. The FS tab. This FS tab is one of my favorite files to see in a Linux system or a Unix system, because this is what volumes are mounted to the system. So you'll see at disk 0S1S1. Okay, actually there's only one disk on this, so it's gonna only be disk 0. And there's multiple, it's split into multiple volumes, all formatted in APFS file system. So you could see that up here, APFS, 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 and APFS. So that's Apple's proprietary software system. I mean, proprietary disk provisioning system, or proprietary file system type that they've been using for quite a while now. And so wireless baseband, so it has provisioned a space for the wireless baseband, which is the wireless subsystem on the phone, the specific one for the mobile software updates, a specific space for everything where this believes, or the stuff in this private var folder lives. So the stuff that word and the stuff that the phone actually senses, looks through, and goes, okay, here, this is what I want to store here, 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 and here, and how to use the apps and stuff like that. All that stuff is stored in private var. And so private.xarts is something else that's interesting to research, and the root is always what's stored first. And this 0 is the default way of doing things, and this 1 and 2 right here are boot order. So when the system boots, this and this are checked first, and then all of the rest are checked second. Last update result.plist. So what this one does is tells us the last update, and there's a UID data right here about it, and it stores when the last update happened and when the last restore was, and whether it succeeded or failure, or whether the one on this date succeeded or failed. So in this case, since I've said many times that my device is updated to 16.7.10, we'll know that it failed, and we can that it succeeded. And we can verify that by checking this out right here. And in fact, it is a success. So now restore.log. So this log stores the restores of the phone. And so this has been restored a couple of times, because originally when I was jailbreaking it to get one of the first system images, I wasn't able to do it. And I think also when I'm jailbreaking it, it makes restore points too, or it restores it because it does something with the system. I do have to look into that though. I see a lot of nothing to do here. So if you're interested in this file, you can take a look at it. But for now, Sim stats messages, network D preferences, protected. So let's check out protected. I mean preferences. Let's check out preferences. So there's no preferences about logging. Okay, let me start again. There's no preference lists,plists about logging for processes, but there is one about subsystems. So we can see here that the default options, under default options level, there are a bunch of levels here. Enable, that things can either be enabled or persisted, and TTL has, all of these have a value of 7. I don't want to change this. Okay, yeah, that's cool. System configuration. So under this system configuration, we have stuff about all of the accounts that exists, all of the radios, all of the Wi-Fi networks that have been joined, a backup of that. We have Wi-Fi and thermostatus. That's a pretty cool one. So how it will check thermostatus, whether the phone gets too hot or whatever happens when it gets too hot or when it's charging and too much heat is coming in. And this tells the phone what to do with everything. And so some of these some of these instructions can be cross-referenced with other things. And now, if you're interested in working at this one and taking a look at what any of these mean, I encourage you to do so. Okay, how about radios? Let's see what radios it has. Airplane mode. There is no airplane mode. Battery data wired. So this one has stuff about battery modes. I don't know what 2630 is. And I don't think this is made to well heat type. I'm curious about this one, format version. 3135. Yeah, I think it's safe to say this one is one that we could do some research on, because all of these numbers seem like magic numbers, or numbers that come out of nowhere without knowing what these items are, what all of these items are. Okay, maybe some stuff about biometrics. We have network extensions. In security, we have seeding, biometric data cap. So I've not registered any fingerprints with it, so com.apple.net. Yeah, but what it does do is it tracks when things were open and when passwords were used, I think. Finger detected. Yeah, it does. Mobile. So there's a lot in here about using the fingerprint sensor that it has involved. And I think if a version of this was on an iPhone like my iPhone 13 Pro, we'd end up seeing from it that it has Face ID instead. And if I were to take this off of my phone and see it, I will be able to see how many times I was able to successfully log into the phone and or do things with the Face ID, and other times when I'm not able to do that. But this is for fingerprint sensor. And now that that's over network d.plist, let's see. Yeah, so back a video or two ago when I discussed about networks, this should show stuff from either knowledge seek or the network databases that I saw. It should be able to cross-reference some of that information and verify that that is in fact the correct information for network stuff. So yeah, if you'd like, you can check out some of this other stuff. Protected, trust, D. Yeah, so let's see. Valid SQLite 3. Let me go to my browser. So this is for what sites and apps are trusted. Sites, apps, and other things that are trusted. True. Trusted groups, trusted hashes. So yeah, and trusted and valid. Yeah, so these are trusted certificate, probably about trusted certificates, but let's move on to the root, which is going to be our last one for this video. Okay, so for root library application support, account state dot pb list. Okay, let's try use plist. Okay, yeah, that was a plist. So version, objects, item 2, item 3. So it has an account state, and that is the UID of the account. Top. Yeah, so it has UIDs, yeah, whatever. KT config, KT public key, transparency model. So Wi-Fi analytics, so device analytics for Wi-Fi. Let's see what this blacklist, nothing blacklist. All of the data. This is looking like all of the data that we found from networks that we joined. All of the networks that we joined. Yeah, that's looking a lot like stuff that we saw earlier in the network subdirectory. Network roaming, yeah. This is matching up with stuff that we've seen in wireless or network directory. Captive catacomb. Preferences, so preferences for party. So let's power transform for capture. Go. Yeah, so these are preferences lists for lots of native Apple functions, which is pretty cool, pretty cool. Delete containers. So this is for stuff that browse data. Containers for data on the phone, like for services like the messaging services related to messaging, sidecar extension, or you can use your Mac on an iOS device, or use your iOS device as a second screen, the Apple App Store, the messaging service, another filter, and other stuff like that, and child bundles, and stuff about code signing. And preferences now for the last one, USB, nothing for USB restricted. And you can end up looking at all of these. If you've watched it this far, you can end up looking into all of these that I just highlighted and seeing if you see anything interesting or anything that is worth noting down. But with that out of the way, I think that's a good way to end this video. And at this point, I'm really gonna have to say thank you for watching my iOS Forensic series and joining me again later on for more series in iOS forensics and forensics of other things like Macs, Windows, computers, and maybe even a redo of the Android series, which I did a while back, with a newer version of Android, to see what new stuff has happened on the Android since Android 12. So, with all of that out of the way, thank you guys for watching. Keep on enjoying forensics, and Matt out.